Hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Pavise Podcast, brought to you by Thracia Staves. Thracia Staves, the best way to tell someone you miss them. Alrighty then, today is the inaugural, the very first episode of the Pavise Podcast, or Pubcast, as hosted by yours truly, Pavise Productions, and joining me here today as my wonderful co-host and co-host for the running time of the Pavise Podcast, which is going to be monthly, is the wonderful and illustrious Fish.
Hello, my name is Fish. I do things on Twitter, and I will be making a YouTube channel based on video essays.
So yeah, everybody, look forward to that, and our wonderful guest, a guest worthy of the first episode. I've worked with him in the past. Always a blast talking to him. Probably some of the best production value in the game in terms of Fire Emblem YouTube. We've got the wonderful Stevie from Lucky Crit, the man only matched by Valbar and Ching quality.
Thank you for having me. How's it going?
It's going good, man. How are you doing?
Trying to balance everything these days, you know? Trying to keep the production quality high while still like releasing enough content, because that's been a struggle lately. But yeah.
Yeah, I've actually got like kind of a few questions for you about that, because your content, in my opinion, compared to the rest of the pack, is like really a step above in terms of like the cleanliness and how clean it looks. But like, what is like your favorite part of your videos, or what do you pride yourself most of in your videos? Like, what gets your when you see something in a video, like when you're watching your own video, what strikes you as like the most proud, like when you make a video? Because like for me, when I watch your videos, it looks so clean, it looks so like tight. But I want to kind of know, like, in your head, like what gets you kind of like excited about a video you're making.
That's a really good question. I'd have to say, like, I definitely can't say audio or even like the live segments, because I keep going back and looking back at like even videos I did just a handful of months ago, and I keep looking at them and saying like I'm not proud of that anymore. You know, I could definitely do it better now. Like, you just progress so quickly as you keep doing this stuff that it's hard to be proud of what you made, and that's why everybody basically looks back and cringes at their old stuff. But yeah, I guess I went to school for art, so I've always been an artist. That's just been kind of my thing. So when it comes to like the visuals, I definitely try really hard, probably too hard in some cases, because I spend way too much time and waste a lot of time and put effort into stuff that people probably won't even notice in a lot of the videos and stuff. So there's a kind of bad perfectionist aspect to it, but yeah, probably the visuals and making sure everything is nice and I guess evokes the right vibe, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it's probably that.
Oh yeah, you definitely got a sense of style or like a very good like kind of branding or theme you've got running through all of your stuff.
Thank you.
Like, it's honestly it's honestly when I look at it, it's not the model I exactly follow, but like out of everybody, I think you do it like probably the best out of everybody. And I think a lot of channels could actually kind of learn from that, like kind of consistent like theming and like kind of thing you got going, because it works really well.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think moving forward, I need to be more consistent about the actual video content that I'm putting out, like the series, because there's been a lot of series that I've started and haven't gotten around to. Sometimes it's because I put like weird arbitrary challenges in it for me. Like I haven't done another pronunciation video in quite a while, because I keep telling myself, like, if I'm going to do one, then whatever character I'm talking about, I also have to paint, and then, you know, that'll be like the thumbnail, or, you know, at least part of the visuals of the video, just as like a personal challenge, because when I graduated from school, I was kind of burnt out and I wasn't really interested in painting or drawing or anything anymore. And so this is, I guess, sort of a way to force myself into doing it again, you know? So like sometimes there's reasonings behind like why I won't go back and just instantly jump back in and do something. But other times too, it's just like you get passionate about one particular thing and you keep doing that. And then your channel kind of, I guess, congeals and changes over time as you sort of switch focuses. Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a good segue into like what I want to kind of talk about today. And that's kind of like really about the legacy of Fire Emblem Awakening, because this is a game that, I mean, I'm really passionate about, and that's what got me like really into the series and kind of like wanted me to make a video about it, or really pushed me into like making videos like in general. but I definitely know that a lot of people don't feel the same way about the game, and you know, it's not as divisive as it used to be, but it's still now. How long ago was it released now? Like 4 or 5 years ago. Like there's kind of still like that kind of mixed reaction to it, and I'm curious to hear kind of like yours and Fish's thoughts on like your specific thoughts or experiences with Awakening, and like what about it stuck with you, what didn't stick with you, you know, kind of as a broad topic to be talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, like, when I first played it, I've never hated Awakening at all. I can understand, you know, why people might not like it or might not like certain things about it. But from the very first time I played it, I felt like the amount of effort that they put into that game. And even just discovering some of the side things that they really just put those little details in there every now and again in certain areas. Like, I just felt that they put a lot of work and effort into that game. So I was always happy. There was always something new to discover. And yeah, I had a blast with Awakening. I really did. Like, the kids coming back the first time, that was fine. I think with Fates, a lot of the things that people, you know, maybe contested about Awakening got worse, and maybe that's why it's sort of now grouped in with Fates and is this kind of the real divide in the community. But I think as a standalone game when it came out, I was definitely really, really happy with Awakening, for sure.
I mean, it was my first one, so I'm very biased when I talk about it. But I'm interested to hear kind of your take on this, Fish. I'm not sure, was it your first game too, or did you like know of it elsewhere, or like what was your introduction to the series?
Oh no, it was absolutely my first Fire Emblem. Look, man, I was the dude who discovered it by downloading the demo on the eShop. When I first played it, you know, playing through it and finishing it and stuff, it was just, I thought it was okay, but the more I played of it, the more I really started to fall in love with it. To the extent that I eventually went out to look for the other games, and it was just, it was a game that struck out to me, not because of the fact that it was flawless. Nothing ever strikes out, nothing flawless ever grabs my attention. The reason it struck out to me was because it had such a level of passion and dedication in it. Because you can hear in the freaking music how much the creators cared for this project. You can see it in the artwork, and you can hear it in the voice acting, both Japanese and English. Just how much this game meant to the people that were making it.
Yeah, I feel kind of the exact same way about that. Like, for me, that's what I felt with Awakening. Even though it was my first game, like, I've described this somewhat before in some of my other videos, but you just feel that level of just, like, almost, like, grit, like, that they put into it. Like, this level of, like, passion, just not necessarily, like, the game itself is gritty, but, like, that, like, people really worked hard at this. Like, they, like... It's hard to describe because so few games have made me feel that way. But Awakening is definitely one of them, where you just feel that effort, that sweat, those blood, sweat, and tears. You feel it. I don't know where it even comes from in the game. Like, I can't even pinpoint where it is, but when it comes together as like a package, you somehow it manages to create that feeling. And I think we all literally just said like that we all felt that. And I think that's crazy. Like, I don't think there's another game where I've really felt it like that strongly, and it seems you guys feel the same way.
I mean, you said that, you know, you don't really know how you feel that. I think the best way to put it with Awakening is that I think the worst things about Awakening come from the fact that they weren't, in fact, in Awakening.
Care to elaborate?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to like, to bring up Fates as a comparison, I'm so sorry, Fates. Fates suffered from having some things that were in it, but suffered from tell, don't show, whereas Awakening did something where they did their absolute best to show what was going on. Like, a lot of people like to make the point that Lucina's a bad lord because they always tell you she went through hell, but they never show it. They have two cutscenes, two very big cutscenes, solely for the point of showing what she went through, which is much more than you would typically find that's a lot more than you're going to find in a lot of other games that go by the philosophy of tell don't show. And what I ultimately think is interesting about it is that you can find that Gangrel's big motivation was that he was going after Elise because of what Crom's father did, and we never got to see that. And so people were like, well, we want that. We want to see that. Crom's biggest character thing is dealing between his identity of, is he his father or is he his sister, and he has to deal with that. But we don't ever really get to see that. We don't really get to see that personal struggle. We only get to see we only get to see him outwardly going through that. And a lot of people say, well, we want to see that. The point I'm trying to make is that whenever people point out something that's wrong with Awakening, it's always something that they wish was in it, rather than something that is fundamentally wrong that is in Awakening. Of course, you'll find people who go, well, you know, this thing was bad and that thing was bad, but it's nothing as numerous as the other flaws that people will find.
Well, I think we all have that game, like that Fire Emblem game specifically, like that we're passionate about. And it seems like for me and Fish there, it's definitely Awakening. But like you have people like Gast who likes like Gaiden and Echoes. Everybody's kind of got their own like game that they consider their thing. Now, Stevie, I'm interested to know, like, what's your kind of like, if you could ramble for hours about one Fire Emblem game, like what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think I need to go back and replay it. I'm not sure that I could speak on it for hours, but when I really sit down and think about like which game stuck with me the most, means the most to me, I think it has the mix of nostalgia, but also like my favorite features too, and that would happen to be the Sacred Stones. And the reason for that is I started with Fire Emblem 7, the original one that we got here in the West, and that's a classic Fire Emblem. You go from chapter to chapter. There's no, world map or any of the side stuff. You're just facing the enemy armies. And when I first played Sacred Stones, just the refreshing nature of having the world map, having these dungeons that you could go into with the enemies. I loved that there were monsters that you were fighting too, along with the enemy soldiers. I really liked the branched class promotions and things like that. I really liked how at the end of the game, even by beating some of these late game dungeons, you could get some of the enemy characters that were like such huge characters throughout the story. I don't know, it just like, to me, that game just felt like it was firing on all cylinders for the time. It gave me like everything that I really wanted in a sequel, or I mean, it wasn't a sequel, but you know what I mean, in a follow-up to Fire Emblem 7. That's what I wanted, and for some reason it just delivered on like every front. And I also like the darker nature of it too. The music is just amazing to me, and that kind of grittier, darker tone and feel, at least in terms of the art and character designs and everything. I don't know, just something about that game. That's the one for me.
Oh yeah, Sacred Stones is definitely a lot of fun.
It's like Sacred Stones is like a dark game, especially in the context of like of how we of the typical tone of Fire Emblem, because usually you're gonna find something where you might find something like the political intrigue of 7. You might find something where it's like a big world-spanning conflict like Awakening. You could find a very personal story of revenge in Path of Radiance that becomes so much more. Sacred Stones is just a really dark story about, like, the game starts with the kingdom, with the main protagonist's kingdom getting conquered. Like, it is a dark game, and I love it.
Oh yeah, it definitely has the monsters, like some of the story moments later on, like the corpse. How was it? The guy whose wife's a corpse.
Orson. Yeah, Orson's wife.
Orson. Yeah. Like it has stuff like that like a lot of other Fire Emblem games like kind of tread lightly around, and I really actually appreciate about like Sacred Stones. It doesn't go full out like edge or anything, but it's
like,
got
it doesn't show you the body or anything.
It's got a good tone. It's got a good feel to it. It's got like it knows what it wants to be, and it's just that a little darker than usual. And it really, I really feel it embraces it and has a good time with it.
Like it's dark, but it's tasteful. You know?
Yeah. It's also subtle about things too. Like one example that I always go back to is I didn't realize it when I first played, but apparently in the late game, one of the later dragon bosses that you actually end up killing, it turns out if you actually pay attention to some of the dialogue and things, people believe that was Myr's father that you actually just slaughtered, and he was corrupted. But so like subtle things that you might not notice the first time around, but yeah, subtly dark for sure.
A lot of little details that kind of like make it come together.
Mm-hmm.
But like Kalak, I love the fact that they give like Kalak and Joshua history, like they were old comrades and everything, and then Joshua and Kalak, when they finally meet, they're just having a casual conversation, and then Joshua's just like, "Hey Kalak, did you kill my mom?" And immediately your heart just sinks.
I remember that moment.
Yeah. Another thing Sacred Stones did, I think it was the first, well, not the first time, because I think Gaiden had the world map, but Sacred Stones brought it back.
Yep.
And then Awakening brought it back after that. But I'm curious to, like, what do you guys think of, like, what's your favorite world map system so far? Because it's been done a few times now. Like I said, the original Gaiden, Sacred Stones, Awakening, and now Echoes is kind of like a repeat of Gaiden, but... like, which map system stuck with you, like, or do you like the most?
As much as I want to say Echoes, the only reason I don't like Echoes is because of the fact that it's very linear and there are very few things to discover. I think there's one secret dungeon. There's Act 6, which is also very linear, and then Sacred Stones is similar but not overly so. So as much as I like Echoes, it's too linear for me. Whereas Sacred Stones it's like a good middle ground between Awakening and Echoes, where you have your story things and you have your dungeons, and then but paralogs aren't on the world map, so you don't feel like so you feel like you've made a path in Sacred Stones. Like you can see where you've been in the story, and paralogs will typically take place, but I don't remember them messing up the world map like they did in Awakening. So I prefer Sacred Stones quite a lot personally. I just wish it controlled better.
Out of those three, we're thinking of like Echoes, Awakening, Echoes, Waiting, and Sacred Stones. I think I like Sacred Stones' use of it the best. It felt very neat and compact. Sometimes Awakening's world map just got a little overwhelming at times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely have to say I don't like the way that Fate's Birthright and Fate's Revelation did it, where it was basically just, hey, you're looking at this picture here and you click where you want to go. Yeah, no thanks. That one wasn't interesting to me. Yeah, I don't know if you guys experienced this when you first played Awakening. When I first realized like how small Elise was as a continent, I was kind of like, oh, I really hope the whole game doesn't take place in this one like tiny continent. So when we finally crossed the ocean, I was like, yes, okay, here we go. There's been moments like that in other games too, where you realize that there's a little bit more than perhaps you were expecting. So I was happy about that. But as far as like which that I like the best is like with features and everything, I think Awakening was a little bit boring because, it didn't really have the dungeons that I enjoyed in Sacred Stones and Echoes. I know Echoes, like I do agree with you, it was like fairly linear. There wasn't that much to go back around and do in all of the locations. So I could say like that's definitely something that it needed to improve upon. Sacred Stones, I think, did it right, and it did it fairly contained. But yeah, it would have been nice to see at least a little bit more or something, because it was just basically... the whole continent of Magvel isn't that huge, but I guess it was big enough for the time. I guess I couldn't complain about that. So I would probably once again have to say Sacred Stones, and agree with you that Gaiden and Echoes was kind of linear and sort of limited with the way that it did things. And Awakening I did like and I did appreciate, but I think it could have used a little something else too.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, these map systems they're kind of like, they're basically, in a way, glorified menus, or they're like a way to like traverse around the world and like select what levels you want to go into or not.
Yeah.
And I think the one that does that the best, I do have to agree with you, is Sacred Stones, mainly because it does feel very I like how simple and basic it is and to the point it is. Like sometimes, like I was saying earlier, Awakening's world map just felt overwhelming at times. Like, or not overwhelming, but very almost cluttered or not very focused.
Yeah, I think my main issue with Awakening's world map is it's just I like the fact that it brings in the idea that this is a world spanning conflict, but in context of the story, it widens out the world map too much for me to really really get into the vibe of the story. Because the one thing I will give to Echoes is that it's while it's linear, it isn't very once it does restrict you in a way to the area that you're in, which I really like, because it keeps you from straying off in the story, whereas and it keeps the narrative focused, whereas Awakening just once things get really really wide and you hit like, I think it's chapter 14 where all of the kid units come in, then you're going around getting all of the kid units and you're not really thinking, boy, I better stop Valm. You're not thinking that. You're thinking, man, I really hope my Crom Olivia Inigo got good stats.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And that's the thing about this world map system, is because it opens it up so much. I know some people just prefer like Path of Radiance or Radiant Dawn, where it just has you on the track, where it's like, oh, this level's over, next level begins, here's your preparations, like, or your barracks where you just do your management, and then you get onto the next level. No middleman of a map. But it seems like the developers at least like this world map system, because I mean, in Fates they didn't commit to it, and I agree the Fates world map is not it's not ideal, but I think it's probably something that they're going to bring back, because they've almost been doing it so much. Like Awakening, and then Fates was kind of like pseudo world map, and then it's back in Echoes. I think the world map might be something that's just here to stay in general.
Man, I can't wait to have that world map in Castlevania Emblem. That's gonna be great.
What are what are you guys' thoughts on like this whole like setting thing, or like not specifically Castlevania Emblem, but like what culture or what setting do you like want to see like next? Like you kind of had like, you know, like how Nohr was European, you had Hoshido, which was like Japanese inspired, but like what area of the world do you guys want to see next? Because I personally want to see like kind of an Arabian or a Mesopotamian inspired, like something inspired by like kind of ancient Middle Eastern in like theme and tone, and like I want to see something in that area of the world. I think that'd be very interesting.
Personally, I think how do I put this? You know, like the kind of tone and cultural vibe that you get when you watch the Sinbad movie. I kind of want that mixed with your typical Fire Emblem setting with like armor and silk wearing Myrmidons and stuff like that. I think I don't want it to be the focus, but I do want it to be a part of the story, because like Sinbad is a really poignant movie for me. Like the swashbuckling feeling, that religious vibe that you get with I can't remember her name, and I feel really sad about this, but the goddess of chaos. I think that Fire Emblem would do really well with it, and it would also be good because boat maps.
I thought about this one a lot, and I think one that I don't hear a lot of people bring up that I think could like work actually really well, depending on how they pulled it off, would be if they went with some sort of an Egyptian theme. You'd have like, I guess the priests. Yeah, I mean you got mummy zombies or something. I mean, we already basically have that with the Entombed sometimes in certain games like Echoes. But I don't know. There's just so much potential there, I think, that they could still retain at least most of the classes and make it work somehow with that Egyptian lore for sure. Yeah. I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah, the lore works really well because Fire Emblem always has that supernatural like kind of divine intervention thing going on, and it's always dragons, but I'm totally down with some Egyptian gods pulling some strings, pulling some political like tug of war. I'm down to see some like Anubis or something, like going. I'm just imagining you get to the final boss and it's some dude with a dragon head, and it's like, you thought there weren't gonna be dragons at the end. It's like, oh my gosh, that's actually one thing I don't want anymore. I just get these dragons out of here, man.
Are you guys sick of the dragon thing too?
I want something different. I want some. I'm totally on board with you now, Stevie. I want some ancient Egyptian Fire Emblem tactics. Like that'd also be cool. Like, although desert maps, but you know,
they can.
There's more than just desert.
Yeah. They have a long way to go to fix
the movement thing to like quicksand or something. They'll be like, no, it's not. What would the joke be? It would be like, no, it's not like regular sand. This is quicksand, but it makes you move slow. It's American jokes, right?
It's just like they'll just make like normal sand. They'll just make sand normal, and then like maybe like you say quicksand, or maybe some like wet sand. I don't know. But yeah,
I think that would be the way to go.
I can totally dig that. Holy crap! Like you've opened my eyes now, Stevie. I'm like, I thought like I had it figured out. Nah, man, you got it down. Oh my god.
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot because one of my mods actually approached me, and I had already been thinking about it myself. I think I might end up doing a video about some other cultures that would be really cool to see. Because even some of the ones that we got so far could have been elaborated a lot further. I liked the whole like Japanese versus like Greco-Roman inspired feel of Fates, but I think that they didn't like do enough with it. I think I was a little disappointed with how they sort of like did have it and implemented it and like didn't really, I guess, use it as well as I was hoping. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential with that. But I am nervous too because I do feel like I saw a really good, I think it was a comment or a reply to one of my tweets at one point that a fan sent me. And basically they said like, why would Nintendo and Intelligent Systems do anything super weird or strange with the next Fire Emblem game? Because this is going to be hopefully a bombshell of a game for the Switch. And once I read that comment, I was like, yeah, that does kind of seem like maybe they'll stick classic with this one, and maybe the one after that is going to be the sort of
experimental.
Right, yeah, the more experimental one. And once I saw that, I really do feel like we're probably going to get a pretty standard Fire Emblem out of 16 at this point. But I do also think that the vampire one could have been cool too, because there's so many classes that just work between the two. I mean, they can make it stupid, you know. If they made it like Fates with vampires, then no, thank you. But there's a way to do it that could have made a really cool game, I think. So I'm up for anything, but yeah. If they go classic again...
Yeah, I got the same gut feeling as you do.
If they go classic again, I just hope that they change something. You know, I'm done with dragons too. I think, like, I get it. I understand it, but give us something else. Do something a little different. I really hope the main character doesn't have blue hair again, because I think there's just too many of them at this point. Like, new people coming into the series are just going to be like, I don't know who that is. Is that Marth? Is that Ike? Is that Crom? Is that Mike? You know, like there's just too many.
There's an image that goes around where it's like, this is Lance Marth, this is original Marth, this is Muscle Marth, this is this is Magic Marth.
Right, it's Magic Marth, man.
This is Marth, but his. Now that I think about it, I was about to make a joke about Ike and this is Marth, but his dad died. But like, to be fair, all of the Marth's dad dies. Everyone's dad dies.
Yeah, pretty much. Fathers have it rough in Fire Emblem in terms of main lords. But yeah, I definitely have that gut feeling that they're going to play it safe. You're right. That comment is totally right. They have no reason to risk anything. They can just play it safe. They probably just want they want a big hit, because with heroes now, like all the heroes players, they're gonna like latch on to whatever comes out on the Switch. Or
right.
I feel that they're gonna like a lot of people are gonna make the jump from the heroes fan base to like, or out of hero. Well, not out of the heroes fan base, but kind of latch on to like a new Fire Emblem game. And Intelligent Systems is definitely not going to go experimental with it, or I don't see them going too crazy. They'll probably keep it standard, but I'm kind of just like deep down, like I'm kind of tired of the standard. Like, you know, I want something. I've seen the tropes so many times now throughout Fire Emblem. I want to see something like fresh. I want to see a totally new take, but it's like deep down I know it's not going to happen, and it hurts.
Now that you say that, I guarantee you there's a Fire Emblem Switch is gonna come, and it's like gonna blow you right out of the water, because it's gonna be Pirate Emblem, and the main boss is gonna be Shanty Pete.
How do you guys feel about Space Emblem? Because I think that got thrown around in the Awakening, like by the Awakening devs at one point.
God,
it's like on Mars.
Space Emblem.
Space Emblem. I don't know. I'm down. I'm honestly right now digging anything that's just not the dragons.
I mean, if you know anything about Xenoblade, it's essentially like it does pull. It's essentially like a mixture between regular Fire Emblem and Space Emblem, where it's like you think it's regular Fire Emblem, but it's really Space Emblem, because there's sci-fi in it too, and you're like, whoa, man. So I think if they made it like a mixture of sci-fi and fantasy, and like implemented it well enough, then I would be down. But like, it really depends on how they do it. I would be absolutely down for it to be like a typical Fire Emblem story about like warring houses and stuff like that, and then like evil supernatural forces and stuff, but like in the context of like a space opera or something like that. Like archers would be like dudes with laser guns, and swords would be whatever swords would be in a space opera. I think it really depends on how they play it rather than what they. It depends on the how rather than the what, I think.
There's also the idea they threw around. It was a modern day. I think that was another one. There was the one that they said on Mars that they were thinking of, and then there was the modern day one. And
I think a modern day would only work in the context of a mafia.
Mafia emblem?
Yeah, I mean, there's not there. I mean, like in the context of Japan, it would be the Yakuza, because the Yakuza are still fairly influential in Japan, whereas in America, mob warring has very much died down, at least in terms of the public eye. But because of how prolific the Yakuza are in Japan, I feel like it would have to be something like that, because modern country politics is much more complicated than it is in the context of like Fire Emblem and stuff, and it's also something that we wouldn't really care about. Whereas the mafia, the Yakuza, that's something where you can have a little bit more lenience with. You can have a little bit more. You can have a bit more fun with.
It's a little more familial than democratic politics and stuff like that. So yeah, I can see that. But for me, it's like whenever I hear Fire Emblem with guns, or in a world with guns, something doesn't sit right with me. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, Lucky Crit, because like guns, like what do you think? Guns and Fire Emblem, like what did those words mean to you? Because for me, they kind of get me a little iffy at times.
Oh, okay. So basically what we're talking about is Fire Creed, Assassin's Fire, Emblem Creed, whatever. Assassin's Creed Fire Emblem, like with each game or series, like jump into a different sort of period in time in history. Yeah, when I think of guns and Fire Emblem, I think it's a slippery slope. I think there's probably a lot of people that would not be interested in it because maybe they're more interested in the sort of medieval fantasy type of stuff. But I think that another game series that I really like is XCOM. XCOM does it really well with aliens and guns. It's basically Fire Emblem with aliens and guns, and I do like that. So there is a way to do it. I don't know if it would be weird if Fire Emblem itself did it instead of just a different game. But yeah, when it comes to some of the different things, I don't know. I'd be open to it as far as like them experimenting with different things, but I do think that once you start going down that path, then there's the potential of it going into like I don't know if you guys pay attention to like the Call of Duty stuff, but there were a lot of people very angry that they basically did like space Call of Duty with one of the more recent ones, and now they've had to go back all the way to like World War II again and sort of I guess restart the cycle once again because it never ends. So yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of an iffy thing, but there is a way to do it because XCOM did it. I don't know if it would feel wrong or weird if Fire Emblem did it though. Yeah.
It's just right now, weapons in Fire Emblem are kind of, where they feel kind of limited in a way, because you just kind of got the weapon triangle with lance, axe, sword, and then some magic and some bows. Mm-hmm. Although I liked how in Fates they kind of changed it up a little bit, because you had the shurikens and you had a few more alternative weapons. I just hope they choose a setting that has just a little more weapon variety.
You could do the 1800s level stuff, because then you have you have sword, lance, axe, gun.
I mean, I'm down for like primitive guns, like really primitive, like because they sucked.
Yeah, I think that could work. Yeah,
you had to be like if you have like early muskets or arquebuses, like they weren't swarming the battlefield. They were just like a unit or two dedicated to like these really crappy guns. But when they hit, like they did a lot of good damage. Or like when cannons are introduced, like I think cannons could find a place somewhere maybe in Fire Emblem. Well, I think it'd be cool if like maybe there was one of the areas discovered like the technology for cannons, and then they started just wrecking these castles, or like they were like the big baddies, like that they unlocked gunpowder or something, and then they started like they just started like gunning down like castle walls and stuff. They're just blowing them up, and then you have to like find a way to stop this unstoppable force or something. I don't know. There's a lot of just. I feel like I'd like a change in time period, but I'm not sure how to go about it. And like Fire Emblem has been in this like medieval fantasy setting for so long that I don't see it branching out, but it kind of leaves it to be like it's like what culture are they going to have like a flavor of, rather than like commit fully to like a time period or anything.
You mean you don't want to see Crom running down the street with an Uzi in Grand Theft Auto Fire Emblem?
Oh yeah. just gunning them down.
He goes to the waifu emblem strip club.
Hordes have risen. Like you have like a modern day zombie. Oh my god. The barracks is the dorm. A lot of silly stuff you could do kind of with a modern day setting, or any kind of just crazy stuff you can do.
Emerin taking an exam. Was I wrong then?
No reaction. Was I wrong then? Oh my lord. One thing I'm also interested to see if they bring back is the voice acting, the full voice acting. Because in Awakening you had the grunts, or the single voice clips, you know? But now,
and they were spicy, but
yeah.
Like they were just grunts. Like you would have huh?
Huh?
And it's like, that's nice. Why aren't you talking?
That's the thing. Now that I got a taste in echoes of what it can be like of a fully voiced Fire Emblem game. And I'm just wondering, like, I want it back so bad, but Echoes has a much more manageable script than a lot of like the bigger casted Fire Emblem games. And the support conversations were a lot more limited, right? So there wasn't as much to voice. But do you think they're gonna commit to like that full voice acting? Like, because I don't know if I can live without it anymore. I like it works so well.
Have you played Persona? Because I think Persona strikes a very good balance between a mixture of full voice acting and grunts. Because I don't think in a mainline Fire Emblem title with like the size of scripts that we typically get these days that we're gonna get full voice acting. I think we might have portions of full voice acting, or maybe just have the story be full voice acting, and then the supports might be grunts, or like really poignant parts of the story might be full voice acting, and then so on and so forth. I think to answer your question, no, I don't think we're gonna get full voice acting. I think we're gonna get a mixture.
I mean, I'm even fine with a mixture of voice acting. Like, I'm fine with that. But I don't know if I can go back to the grunts. I don't know if I can go back to the oofs and the...
Like 100% grunts.
Yeah, I don't know if I can go back to that anymore. Or, like, I don't know, after I heard Echoes, I don't know if I'll, like... Of course, if they do go back to grunts, I can live with that. But the voice acting added so much to me, to the experience of Echoes. I don't know. Maybe I'm overstating it. But for me, that really resonated home with me, or made it just that much more enjoyable.
Especially because Ian Sinclair.
Also, like, the voice acting talent, yeah, was really good. Like, it's a shame that, like,
It's...
some of the names they had back when Awakening was around was, I'm saying that, like, they got a lot of good voice talent back when Awakening that they can't access anymore. Like, I think, I'm not sure if Matt Mercer's still doing Hero's voice work for his characters. I don't know if he's doing that. I know Laura Bailey isn't doing it anymore, although I'm not sure, or not doing Lucina anymore. I'm not sure if that...
I think that's primarily due to the strike.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know if it's the strike, or if they can't access them, or if they're like too popular for those roles anymore, because those voice actors are a lot more established now in terms of the roles they've landed since Awakening.
They probably want more money now too, like if they were to bring him back for certain things. So I could see that. I could see why they wouldn't do it for Heroes. But yeah, I think in general, with the way that Echoes did it, it is a double-edged sword, because I really do feel like we got less supports in that game because they were voiced, because they could only do so many. And I really want more supports back, like the older games. But obviously, yeah, the voice acting was nice. I do think, though, like there were some areas in Echoes that we didn't really need the voice acting for. Like, I don't think it really would have mattered if all the townsfolk had voices or not. I don't think anybody's going to be actually upset about that if you left sort of the main story and just went into a town and talked to a person. I don't think people would care if they had a voice. So maybe in some areas like that, if they were to rebalance it a little bit better, maybe we could see hopefully more voice supports. I mean, this is going to be a big main series game, so I hope that they pull out all the stops and really go far with it, but that remains to be seen. So
yeah, because you think of the scale of Fates, that was 3 games. And to have, like, now they don't have to make... I'm assuming they're not going the same route. I'm assuming they might.
Right.
Not.
But now they can focus on, like, one title, hopefully one title. And I'm interested to see, like, how, like, what the result is.
I think, personally, we might get, like, a Radiant Dawn level story where there's, it follows the act structure, and we get, maybe they'll do a thing where they do the multiple army thing of Radiant Dawn. I hope not, because that felt really unbalanced in Radiant Dawn. But I think the act structure, given the amount of things you can put onto a Switch cartridge and the popularity of Fire Emblem these days, I'm fairly certain we'll get a much, I don't know about longer, but definitely a much larger story.
I mean, it was a huge jump from when we went originally the first time around, from Sacred Stones to Path of Radiance, jumping from Game Boy Advance to GameCube. So I really hope that this time around, jumping, from portables again back to console, I hope it's huge once more. And I think they do it pretty well with Xenoblade. I've never actually played Xenoblade, but from what I've seen, it does look like a pretty expansive, like basically single player MMO in terms of like the world building and everything. As a side note, I was trying to like look into that and see if I was interested in picking that up, and I don't know, the actual combat in that game looked a little choppy to me. I couldn't believe it. It looked a little like, I guess, beta, like slow.
Oh well, it is. It's part of the main theme of Xenoblade. Like one of the core themes of Xenoblade is the idea that the main character is growing up. So as you go through the story, the main character grows, and the combat becomes really fluid, like surprisingly fluid. Like the more things you unlock, and the more things they add into the combat system to make it to give you more goals and more things to do, the more it begins to flow. Like it's a very it's very awkward at first when you start the game, but as you go on, it gets a lot better.
Okay, good. I was nervous about that just as an outside like person looking in, trying to take a look.
If you like ever want to like see how fluid it gets, I can shoot you a link or something.
Gotcha. But anyway, yeah, sorry to sidetrack things, but that was just something I noticed. But yeah, if they went that approach, I would hope that they would do the world building at least as well as that, in terms of like what we could expect to see for like areas, or how expansive, the world would actually be. So I don't know. I hope. What I'm nervous about is, last time around when Fire Emblem was dying, they pulled out all the stops for Awakening, and it clearly worked. I don't want them to put on the cruise control and just keep cruising along and not really take it to the next level. That's what I'm nervous about, personally.
I can see that fear, but with Fates, it felt like they really did try, in my opinion. Like 3 full games, like that's pretty ambitious, and they must have had a lot of faith in it. And even if it didn't pan out, I do think, like, yeah, they might, quote unquote, because making a game isn't usually as easy as phoning it in. But I do think, like, I think the developers are intelligent systems, like just as a developer in general. When I think of the games that they've made, I mean, the Paper Mario games lately have been kind of a little sketchy, or a little not rough around the edges, but not as kind of ambitious as they used to be. Yeah. So hopefully, yeah, I do agree though. I don't want to see them just kind of park the bus, stay stagnant. I do want to see them kind of reach for the stars in that kind of sense.
You mean Space Emblem?
Yeah, space.
Clearly, I'm alluding to my secret agenda of Space Emblem. That's all I want. Now, another you can go first, Fish.
Excuse me. I'll finish this up with the joke about Space Emblem. The biggest thing that in the most controversial thing in Space Emblem is going to be the fact that now you can have alien waifus.
Oh my god, like kind of like the Mass Effect thing. Like everybody freaks out, like, oh my god,
this is the blue one, this is the green
one,
this is the one with fur on it.
Oh my god. I don't know if I want Space Emblem anymore. I think I'll stick to castles and Earth.
All right, so what were you saying?
I was gonna go on about gonna make a hard pivot here to something that I know a few people have dividing opinions on, but that's weapon durability, because it seems like we haven't had to deal with it for a while, because Echoes, you just equipped a weapon and that was it, right? No durability. Mm-hmm. Fates had no durability. So it's actually been, I mean, neither does Heroes either. No durability in that game either. Like, durability literally hasn't been a thing since Awakening now. Do you think they're gonna stick with that? I personally think that I kind of want it back, but I can see why people don't like it,
I think if they go with durability, they cannot go back to the air quotes ammo system of previous titles. I think that They should go to more of a form of, like, they should go back to how FE4 kind of handled it, where they give you a limited number, but and they all have durability, but one of the core parts of FE4 is taking care of your weapons, like repairing them and stuff. I think that they should kind of do that, but evolve it, so that way not only does it feel like you're constantly taking care of your weapons by like repairing them and things like that, but you also get to evolve your weapons similarly to how you did in Echoes. So I think I would want the durability system back, but I would want them to like mess with it enough to feel like it's something new.
I'm definitely team return the weapon durability. I think Fates did it in a way that I didn't hate it. Without having it, it did feel like I was nervous at first. So like, oh, if weapons can't break, we're just going to end up with way too many weapons all over the place. Like, what's the point then? But I did feel like there were so many characters to equip that there was never a point in the game where I did feel like I just have too many of everything, and like, what's the point of getting 5, of this or whatever. So I think they did it fine, but the decreasing certain stats when you use certain weapons, it just kind of provides this, it was an added layer of depth, but kind of in a bad way. Like it discouraged you from using certain, higher level weapons. So I didn't really like that. I don't think that was the best way to go about it. So I would like to see it back, but I do definitely agree. I think if it does come back, I would like to see some kind of at least repair system to bring things back up. There's always been those weapons that are really good with a lot of, not so many uses on them, that would be nice to just not lose, especially if you only get 1 or 2 throughout the game. I think that, like, personally, from like an OCD level, always stressed me out. Like, is it time to use this weapon or not? I only have, 20, 25 uses on it. So I'd like to see something where you could fix it. You don't have to stress so much about it. But yeah, I think there's definitely a way to bring it back and still do it fine, that it won't upset people. But I can definitely agree that, like, when I do think about it, it does seem like they might be permanently straying away from it, and we might just see, no durability return in this game. I don't know.
Yeah, it really seems like they're trying to, or at least, well, Heroes is a mobile game, so of course they're going to streamline it. But I feel like they did a lot of experimentation of how they could like streamline the Fire Emblem experience as much as they could. And I feel like we might see elements of that kind of jump into Fire Emblem Switch. Like, it even has me thinking about the skill system. Like, are they going to go with the Heroes timer-based skill system or turn-based skill system again? Are they going to experiment with that? Like, it's got me thinking, like, since Heroes is so popular, like what impact is that going to have on the game coming out now on the Switch?
Yeah.
I think the biggest change that they're going to make in Fire Emblem Switch is touch controls.
Oh yeah. I always forget that the Switch has that it's actually like a kind of like it's a tablet.
Yeah, cuz in Fire Emblem in the Arcanea remakes, the way that one of the ways you could move your units around was actually using your stylus. You can move them around on the bottom screen. So I think they might do a thing where where they might use a thing that's similar to Bayonetta, where you can use the touch screen as well. Like, you can use the controllers, but you can use the touch screen as well and move the units around and stuff.
Yeah, because this is going to be now a fusion. Because Switch is technically a console, but it's got that handheld factor and that touchscreen. So, that's a cool way that they could use it, is like the movement. Although, does the Switch have a stylus? I have a Switch, but I forget. Does it have a stylus? I don't think it does.
No, it's primarily touchscreen.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm interested to see. Yeah, how would they use the Switch's unique capabilities? Like, because it's got what does it have? Like, it's got the portable factor and the touchscreen, but like, is there anything else that they can really like kind of spruce up the game with, like with the Joy-Cons or something? And like, am I just missing something that they can go crazy with here?
I don't think so.
I think they usually tend to be pretty conservative, right? I'm trying to think of like Radiant Dawn on the Wii. I don't think they did anything with the Wiimote or anything.
I think they said that like it messed too much.
How do you guys feel about like PvP though?
Stuff like there wasn't any. I think the quote was that like there wasn't any legitimate reason. There wasn't any kind of. There wasn't
a need.
Like there was no point to it, I guess.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Just to jump on what Stevie said about PvP and that like portable, or you just briefly mentioned there like the PvP, like yeah, the Switch. You can, if you besides someone with the Switch, like you can just kind of just hook up with them and maybe that could be a way to do multiplayer.
Please improve the my base system in Fates, because that was like I liked the idea of a customizable base and going around and seeing what other people did with it, but it was just everyone had the same stuff. It's like, okay, so they put their armory over here by using this map, but like so did like the other 3 people that I saw, so I know exactly where to attack the next time I need to invade them. Like I think if they do PvP, they're gonna need to like evolve the base system, because once you've seen like 2 bases using a similar structure, you know how to invade literally everyone else. You know what you're doing. So it's just PvP didn't really feel fun.
Well, Fates did literally have a PvP mode. Like it wasn't just the bases. They literally had player versus player matchmaking PvP.
Yeah.
And I personally did not like it. I didn't like it very much at all. I don't think Fire Emblem works very well as multiplayer without objectives. If you just go to the core combat, it gets really kind of campy very fast. Nobody likes making the first move. And or there's setups that are so broken where if you make the first move, you just win. Or at least there weren't Fates. Mm-hmm. So if they do multiplayer on the Switch one, I think they'd have to tread a little lightly.
Can't wait for Capture the Flag Fire Emblem.
That's honestly better than what was in the Fates.
That's not a high bar.
It's not a high bar, but it's definitely better than what was there or what's there right now. Y'all remember Double Duel?
That's what makes me nervous about it, is because the Switch is so portable and so focused on like, you know, grouping up with people, playing multiplayer content and things like that. And yeah, Fire Emblem has never done PvP particularly well. I like when they include it because I think that's just a nice like option to have. And when I build up my units, and if I'm going to be like super OCD about them, try to get good level ups and stuff, like it doesn't seem like there's a point to caring about that unless there's PvP or something like that, like beyond the game itself. So yeah, they would have to be careful, because I do remember a lot of shenanigans happening with Fates 2 with broken skills. I think one of the warp skills was like really broken in PvP. And there's just always been stuff like that over the years that they've tried it. Even in Shadow Dragon, back then there were people like hacking the game with like action replays and stuff, and using like Garnefs to like kill people with Mhulu or whatever.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad. So if they do it, I hope they do it well. I would like to see it, but I also understand that it kind of doesn't work so well.
Yeah, these games are designed as campaigns. Like the systems and mechanics are designed for single player campaigns. They kind of get sort of bent once you get into multiplayer. Like these mechanics, they kind of just get, like they don't translate from that single player experience to the multiplayer experience very well.
I think I think if they do PvP, or they need to do PvP correctly, they're gonna need to have like, they're not gonna be able to use the base system. Or if they are, they're gonna need to do a very big overhaul. I think in order to keep it interesting, they're going to need to have some kind of they're gonna need to have like, they're gonna need to use some of the story maps, I would say, because the story maps are already there. They work really well. It's just a matter of throwing objectives that work in the context of the map in there for to diversify combat.
I'm not sure if I like, they also did have that in Fates though, in the PvP where you played on story maps, but
did they really?
Yeah, Like there, you played at the Opera House. There was an Opera House, like if you remember that map with all those boats that you went over. They did have that, but it's like the same thing. It's that they don't translate very well from single player to multiplayer. They just I'd rather have just maps designed for multiplayer, like specifically for multiplayer. But at the same time, I'm not sure if they're going to dedicate the resources just for a PvP mode, because at the end of the day, people come to Fire Emblem for that single player campaign tactical experience. They're not really coming around to like do PvP.
I mean, they might do like something along the lines of not really using the core combat system as it's meant to be used for the sake of PvP. They might put their own twist on it and do something like kind of like maybe like how Smash Bros does it, where they diversify things quite a lot in like different modes and stuff. Like sometimes it'll be side scrolling like Mario, sometimes it'll be like just tournament matches and things like that. Like this is all in the context of Smash Bros, by the way, but they have enough game modes and stuff in it to diversify things and get players to get used to the systems more. And I think if they delved deep enough into Fire Emblem and learned how to use it, Fire Emblem could absolutely flourish if they learned how to use the system in like in different, unique, and interesting ways.
Yeah, I hope they tried that too, but it just comes back to like, deep down, are they going to do that? And each time I ask myself that question, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a pessimist. Each time I think of something, I'm like, but will intelligent systems do that? It's just, deep down, Fire Emblem is one of the most like probably traditional or conservative in terms of like changing itself. It's kind of always been like the same thing. Well, that's an overgeneralization, but it's kind of always been what it's been. Like you have in other franchises, Nintendo franchises, they have a bunch of like kind of different ways they've branched off into. And I guess Fire Emblem's done that a little bit, but I can't really see them changing the fundamental experience at this point. And I'm not sure if what you're saying, like kind of like diversifying it, I mean, it'd be cool, but it's intelligent systems, not the most, although sometimes they are. Again, it's really hard to make generalizations about a company that's done as many games as Intelligent Systems. But out of all of Nintendo's franchises, I think Fire Emblem feels the most rooted in terms of like almost like its core.
Yeah, they don't. You don't typically see them implementing new mechanics. You can absolutely see. You can see hints of it when it comes to like Fates with the use of dragon veins, but that's less of them changing the system itself and more of them trying to mess around with the tools that they give you.
Now, just to do a quick jump back to multiplayer a little bit, I'm not sure what experience you guys have with this game mode, but Fire Emblem Awakening had this mode called Double Duel. And it was, back in the day, this was like one of my favorite game modes. Nowadays it isn't. But I'm interested, did you guys even touch Double Duel at all? Specifically, Stevie, did you touch Double Duel at all? Or was it kind of just something you kind of just ignored?
I remember reading about it before the game came out and kind of wondering, what it would entail fully. But no, not really. It was one of those side modes that I kind of didn't get around to touching. I still never, like, I obviously beat Awakening, but because of all the grinding you could do and all the skills you could unlock in all your classes, my main Fire Emblem or my main Awakening account still doesn't have like all the skills and everybody completely maxed out. So someday I'll have to go back and try to do everything there is to do. But no, not yet.
Did you get around to Apotheosis?
I actually have not played. Like I've seen it, but I haven't played it myself. No, unfortunately.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That map is whew.
I've heard some things.
Because Awakening also had that DLC with the Limit Breaker, Breaker DLC,
right?
Where it was literally like the DLC was literally the stat cap was increased for everybody by 10, and that was crazy business. It's almost similar to like the the overclassing in Echoes, where like you just have these stat caps just as DLC, and that kind of like, because Awakening was also the first to do that DLC thing. I think it was one of the first games on the 3DS to even do DLC.
Yep. It might have been, because it did launch really early, and I think that's also what really helped it to sell a lot of copies. Because I think that's also what helped contribute to killing stuff like Shadow Dragon, because it was just released so late on the DS.
Yeah, Awakening really caught the 3DS almost in its prime, or like just as it was about to reach its prime. Like you had, I believe, just before that, the only significant game before it was 3D Land. You had 3D Land, and then there was a drought, and then Awakening came, and that was like almost like it was supposed to like save the 3DS from the drought. And then after Awakening, the 3DS got a slew of games coming out, and then Awakening was part of like that kind of wave, and then it just rode it super hard, and almost everybody who had a 3DS like was talking about it, or at least that I knew was talking about Awakening, at least in some fashion, or have heard of it.
Yeah, it's very much the it was kind of the what's the word? It wasn't I don't want to say it was the Breath of the Wild of the 3DS. It's kind of like a mixture of the It's kind of like a mixture of Breath of the Wild and Xenoblade 2 for the Switch, where it wasn't like the breakout title on the 3DS. It wasn't a system seller, but it also wasn't as niche as Xenoblade 2. It was somewhere in the middle. It was this this game that it was this game that you, if you had the system, you would more than likely get it, but you wouldn't buy the system for it.
Oh yeah, I totally see what you mean with that. Although I remember they did have that 3DS. They had that Fire Emblem 3DS like paint thing, where like or the special 3DS with like the like special thing on the back. I think those go for like a lot of money these days, but like I remember that being the thing.
Oh, the blue one that had it downloaded?
Yeah, the blue one. It was like blue, and it had like on the back it had like I forget what it had on it, but it had like some of like the dragons on it, like some of the like the dragon art, like Grima, not Grima. It had like Naga and like some symbol in the middle of it. I should probably search it up, but I remember that was a thing, and when that like. Nintendo definitely pushed it a lot harder than I think most people expected them to, or at least like because it became such like a, I guess the numbers were so good in Japan that they decided like, oh man, if we push this in the West, like it'll do gangbusters, and I mean they weren't wrong.
On the context of in the context of seeing the success of it in Japan and releasing it in America, you gotta have localization teams to do that. So, do you guys think that, like, for Fire Emblem Switch, do you think they're gonna do Treehouse again, or you think they're gonna try and get 8-4 to do it, or are you thinking they're gonna do a mixture?
I want 8-4 back, to be honest. I love 8-4.
Yeah, I've definitely been hard on Treehouse for Fates, but I think the reasoning behind that, and some people did point out when I did one video where I was a little hard on Treehouse when it came to Fire Emblem Fates, but people did point out that they also ended up doing Sacred Stones and other games earlier on, so they've been around for a while. Yep. I think it's just the combination of the new staff at the Treehouse, and also the fact that the writing for Fates in general was just a lot campier and I guess zanier than what we were used to. So that combination, yeah, I don't think yielded the best result. But I do think, yeah, I liked what 8-4 did in Awakening. Yeah, I'm game for that. I believe
did 8-4 do Echoes as well?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, like
they did. I think the reason they didn't do Fates wasn't because Nintendo liked the franchise a lot more and wanted to keep it in house. It was because they were busy localizing Xenoblade X.
Oh yeah, they probably had 8-4 on another project and they couldn't like use them then. so they decided to do it in hell. Of course, we don't know that, but that seems like a plausible explanation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree with what Stevie said about the staff. The staff that worked on Sacred Stones is not the same staff that worked on Fates. It's if you looked in the credits, you might see a few same names, but oh man, definitely not the same team that was localizing Fire Emblem games way back when. Although you'd probably see one or two faces in both of those credits. But I definitely want to see 8-4 back in the mix for the Switch, for the Fire Emblem on Switch. I love what they did with Awakening. I love what they did with Echoes. I think Echoes specifically, I thought the script was a lot of fun to read. It was honestly a joy, and I agree that Fates was a little bit campy. Or wasn't there that line in somebody's paralogue where it was like that's dinosaur or that's dragon for I love you or something? I forget what line it was.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
It was Grr, that's dragon for I love you or something like that.
Oh, stuff like that just miss me. So yeah, I'd love to see 8-4 back in the fray in terms of localization. I think they do a great job. Although they're not perfect, but actually that reminds me. Some people seem to have forgotten about this, but y'all remember the curtain?
Crump's Cape, you mean?
The Tharja curtain?
Oh yeah, that was tasteful censoring, though, I will admit.
Yo, the Tharja curtain, man.
I'd rather have it in than taken out. Yeah, I'd rather have it in the game than taken out completely. So I guess it was
That's one
okay.
of the weirdest localization things I've ever seen. They just we don't know what to do. Have a curtain.
It's funny though.
Yeah, it's. Although, would they in a modern day Fire Emblem would they put a curtain?
I hope not.
Not in Heroes.
Because even a lot of the stuff in Heroes, some of those costumes are pretty risque at times. But I'm just thinking about it. Would they do the localization in terms of what the West can handle and not handle seems to have changed a little bit, and it's just the type of that curtain. It's just, I don't know. Sometimes whenever I just think of Fire Emblem Awakening, that curtain comes to mind. I'm like, it's so zany. It's such a zany choice, but I don't know. It's wild.
It ruined the game for you?
Oh yeah, deal breaker.
I can understand
Absolute deal breaker. I immediately took my copy. I got my copy. I took it out of my 3DS, put it back, traded it in for $5 at EB Games. Probably less. I was done. Just repulsive, disgusting. How could they do this?
And you punched your Radiant Dawn disc until it shattered into a million pieces too.
I'm just imagining he goes through the Volmark. That was a little boring, but it was okay. He deals with Savory and some weird twists, and he deals with all of this weird stuff and some awkward writing in the Grima arc and all that stuff, and he's like, nah, that was fine, beats the game, totally fine, goes through all the DLC, oh, this is a little boring, gets to the beach thing and sees the curtain, and he's like, no, this is awful,
unplayable. 0 out of 10, unplayable.
You know what made me mad about Fates though?
No cheeks, no dice.
7.4. Negative 7.4. What they did in Fates that made me really mad was they didn't give us any of the bathing suits for the characters, which I think is the most trivial, silly thing I've ever seen, because anybody will see people in bathing suits in magazines, on TV. It's not a taboo thing, even remotely. I can understand maybe they were nervous about some of the younger characters or something, but we see bathing suits everywhere. I don't know why they had to take that out of the game. They locked us out of that content, those extra costumes. They were less available in that actual accessory shop because of that. So I hated that. I was happy though that they did manage to keep in the private quarters as much as they did, because I was scared when we were first hearing things about Fates that they were just going to completely almost scrap that feature basically. So I guess there's a give and take.
We got the petting scrapped too, right?
Yeah, but at least it was still there to the point where you can like still get the interactions.
I feel like people overreacted
no touch
towards the petting though. Like I think having it removed should have just ended with okay.
Yeah. I guess I underestimated
that. It's understandable, but I mean whatever. And instead we had like hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands even, saying, "Oh, this is terrible. You're moving it like a pristine feature of the game." And it's like, no, it wasn't like a primary feature. It was like a weird side thing that like even a lot of the people who got to play it were like, nah, this is weird.
Yeah. It was definitely like when I heard petting was not going to be in it, I was like, I still slept fine. But I know some people out there just like, I'm sure at the end of the day they were fine with it as well. But some. Like, the petting's not, like, it's not that crazy in terms of, like, a feature to be removed. But in terms of, like, the other stuff, I agree with you, Stevie, on, like in the US and Canada, like, people are exposed to that kind of thing all the time. Like, even, like, Fire Emblem's rated teen most of the time, too. So, like, even in the rating, like, T for teen usually encompasses that kind of thing as well. But they still choose to remove it anyway. Or wasn't actually no wait, wasn't Tharja removed from like her trophy removed from Smash Brothers or something?
What?
I believe so.
Really?
That was a thing, yeah. It didn't. To be honest, it wasn't the best looking trophy I've ever seen anyway. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. But what didn't they do? I forget what the reason why it was, but did it have something to do with like that age rating kind of deal? But because it was leaked that like trophy was supposed to be in there, but then it wasn't there in the final game. Which is kind of weird.
Yeah, there's pictures of it. I think it might still be in the game files, but just not accessible. But yeah, I think it was. They were probably nervous about the age rating.
Yeah, that just kind of blows my mind. Like, because even that trophy is like
it's not
that bad.
Got to get that E for everyone.
Yeah. I guess Nintendo's a little iffy about that kind of thing, or they really care about that family-friendly image. It's at least in Smash Brothers. Although you have Bayonetta in that game too. So what am I talking about? I don't know. Tharja, get that out of here. Bayonetta. That's what I'm talking about.
Corrin's thigh gap? Nah, I can't have it. We can't have the stuff showing off their thighs. It's not allowed. Tharja statue?
Not in my Christian game.
Not from Fire Emblem, no. Bayonetta? Yeah, sure, fine. Yeah, Bayonetta can be
not chill. That's fine with me. You do you.
I'm just imagining Masahiro Sakurai talking to the executives at Nintendo, and he's like, so, like, about this sexual stuff from Fire Emblem, and they were like, can't have it, it's not allowed. And he said, so I was thinking of putting Bayonetta in there, and they were like, yeah, that's fine, it's whatever. And he goes, well, you know, like a core part of her in her games is that when she attacks, like, she uses her hair, and since her hair is part of her outfit is
nah, you're good.
Don't worry about it.
That's fine.
Gotta stay true to the character.
I'm just imagining they were probably like, well, it's not, you know, like, it's not a Nintendo franchise, and Bayonetta's now a Nintendo franchise.
But yeah, like, Tharja's kind of like has a weird kind of spot, because Tharja's kind of almost like this, like, not scapegoat, but almost like this, like, almost not like a symbol, if that makes sense, that a lot of people kind of like, a lot of some, like, older fans like to kind of trash on. Or, like, Tharja to a lot of people kind of represents, like, Fire Emblem going in a direction that they don't like. In terms of, like, because Awakening definitely, like, Fire Emblem has always been anime-esque, or, like, had the anime-esque art style, but Awakening, with, like, when they hired Kozaki to do, like, a lot of the designs, it really embraced or went really hard in that direction. And then the writing also kind of went really hard in that direction with characters like Tharja. And Tharja's also been kind of, like, almost, like, not as much anymore, but used to be on the receiving end of a lot of hate, almost like as a, kind of like a scapegoat, as, like, Awakening's, like, all the problems with Awakening kind of deal.
I think these days, people like to point the finger at Camilla a lot, which I don't think it's a fair argument because Camilla suffers from the Fate syndrome, which is tell don't show, where they tell you like all this stuff about the backstory and characters tell you all these things, which leaves you with the feeling that all of the development has already happened and that you missed the good part of the story. So when people point the finger at Camilla, it's really not a fair criticism because they're essentially pointing at a flawed character without the context of the fact that she is in a flawed game.
I guess like those types of although those types of character designs have existed before, it's never been to that like level like that it kind of went to with Starja. Well, not as much Starja as like Camilla literally having that like belt like right down the middle of her abdomen for no. I don't know why that's there, but that kind of deal, those kind of designs really didn't like sit well with people. And I can kind of see why, to be honest. Like at the end of the day, it's just a piece of art. It's just a character art. But like I can see why people will kind of be upset about that. Or it's not like for example, I much prefer the direction that Hidari, I believe that's Hidari, right? Hidari, who did the art for Echoes? Yeah, Hidari. I liked
Hidari. That
felt a lot more grounded, a lot more modest than kind of the Awakening of Fates approach to the character designs. And I think I'm not sure if I'd want Hidari to return for a future game, but I don't think I want to see Kozaki back.
Like it worked. I think it worked a lot for Awakening, because of like the general aesthetic and tone of Awakening really complemented Kozaki's art, whereas with Fates, it felt very tired, I guess is the word.
Oh yeah, I totally feel that.
Like it wasn't just a thing that, you know, Kozaki's artwork was bad in any way. It just felt like it felt like with the number of characters that the poor man had to design and draw, it just felt like it felt like there was less personality in a lot of the characters.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think I'm usually pretty good about the artist. Like I haven't had a problem with anybody, but I do think that after having two Kozaki games, being Awakening and Fates, I think I'm done with Kozaki. I don't mind the art style. I liked it. I really do like it. But I think that kind of defines those games. And now moving forward, I want like a different defining art style. What I liked the most about Echoes actually was it really did, like, to me, look like they went back to like Sacred Stones and took that kind of darker, grimmer art style and then brought it to like today's standards. And that's what really sold that art style to me. But I also feel too, like, yeah, would I want Hidari to come back for Fire Emblem Switch? Probably not. Not because I didn't like the art, because I really did like the art a lot. But I want like a different vibe from it. So I'm ready for the next thing, I think.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm ready for a new look. I kind of want to see I want to see something, maybe not, like if you look at a lot of the Cypher card art or a lot of the Heroes like art, I think the aesthetic I like the most, or I want to see, of course it depends on what location they choose or what setting they choose, but I really liked I like the new art from the ones who did Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. I forget the artist's name, but I really liked the modernized version of that art style. But at the same time, I kind of want to see if they do something. I want to almost see some new blood, some more new artistic blood kind of brought in, to give it like a new kind of fresh look for like this first Switch game.
On that topic, what artists specifically from Heroes, just from Heroes, would you want to see do Switch? Like without the context of what Switch would be or whatever, just the artist, which one would you want to see from Heroes?
Oh man, I gotta bust out Heroes now. Look through some of my favorites here, because I cannot name these artists by name, or like I can't name them that well. So just let me take a look through. Gotta take a look through some of my units real quick.
While he's looking, Stevie, do you have an artist name, or do you need to look too?
There's a couple that I like more than others, but would I want that particular artist to do all of the artwork for Fire Emblem like 16? I don't know. Kita Senri is good. He's done, I think, both Ikes. I'd have to look to double check, but
there's 3 Ikes now.
That's a pretty standard, I think, just a good style all around. Hakan does the little bit more fan servicey, a little bit more thickness to some things that I personally appreciate, but I don't know that I would want that to be like the real art style of the next game. I think it needs to be a little bit grittier than that. That's a little like cotton candy fluffy, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, a lot of the heroes art tends to skew in that direction. A little fluffier, a little lighter, because it's heroes. There's not a lot of gritty dark art in heroes. Looking at my units, I really liked the one who did Micaiah, I believe, Chico. I really like what they did with Micaiah's art here. I think it looks. I really like what they did with or what Chico did with Micaiah and that kind of art style. It's a little closer to Kozaki, but I think. Well, Kozaki's a little more you can totally tell if you put a Kozaki character beside Chico's art, it would definitely look different. But I really like how the clothing looks, or how the cloth is drawn with that Chico did there, and I think that'd be cool to see, like a bunch of characters done in that style. Although I don't know who else Chico's done in Heroes off by heart, but just looking through my units list, that's what struck me the most.
Personally, I'm actually a really big fan of Akira. He's the guy that did Lonku, Raven, Arthur, and Olivia, basic Olivia. I think, yeah.
Oh,
I think because in each character has like a very personalized style that just kind of works for them. Like Arthur has a lot of like Arthur's shadows are a lot darker to look like much more campy and comic book style. Olivia's a lot more sketchy and wild, which kind of works for her personality in a sense. Raven is a lot more faded and everything. Like the colors don't the colors are there and they're lush and everything, but like the line work is a lot more faded and choppy. And then Lonku is like a very solid, but there's not really much else. And I think what's weird is that each style personally fits each character that they drew. And I wouldn't want that in such an extreme level in a Fire Emblem Switch game, I think the way that they draw their characters with such a subtlety, applied to not really a large cast, but like a strong enough one, I think that would really work. And I think it would be really interesting to see how that would work out in a mainline title.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Akira's stuff now, and I can totally see it actually. It's a little more leaning toward kind of almost like not comic book, but kind of graphic novel-esque. And that'd be actually really cool to see a whole Fire Emblem game done this way, with like original character designs done with this kind of like graphic style, graphic novel, comic kind of aesthetic. And I think I could dig it. I think I could totally dig it.
I think a lot of fans would be split with that art style, though, because I have seen
for sure
those probably get like the most complaints, I think, out of anybody. I don't hate them at all. I think the characters that they chose for that artist really worked out. Like they have been very tasteful in who they gave them to work on. But I definitely know that a lot of people like don't like those because of how much they clash with the other ones. I was looking around though, and I did see.
Yeah, they definitely stand out.
Yeah. The Love Abounds Lilina was made by Bun Bun, and I really do like that art style. But I think Bun Bun also did Lilina's like normal artwork, her original normal variant artwork.
They did regular Roy as well.
Yeah, and
if I'm not wrong,
I don't know. I wasn't too sold on those first two. This Love Abounds one, I think, is really good. So that's the other problem too. Is just like, I guess how much effort gets put into it. I know they have like strict deadlines and stuff, and pumping out a lot of characters might not be good, but just the variance between the different pieces sometimes can really affect things too. Because I wasn't sold on those two first pieces, but I really do like this new Lilina that we just got. So I'd be, I guess, worried, but they usually pick a good artist. They're pretty good at that. So.
Oh man, I need to know my Cypher artists a little better. A lot of them they've used in both Cypher and Heroes. But some of the Cypher's card art is just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I'd love to see more of it. I'm just, oh man. I don't have my cards immediately in reach, but it's awesome to have those because the art on those things, I believe it's, there's a card of Masked Marth. Like a Masked Marth card. And I wish I knew the artist's name by heart, but I'd love to see something in that style. Or it had kind of almost like a watercolor-esque kind of thing going on. And I think it really worked. But they've definitely got a wide selection of artists to choose from. And as long as it's not somebody I've seen before, like Hidori or Hidari or Kozaki, I think I'll be fine with whoever they choose. Like when it comes to the art style, I care, but that's usually not what I'm really focused on when it comes to a Fire Emblem game. Although it is important. It is definitely important.
DS.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The DS sprites were
Marth looks like young Marth looks perfectly fine. Older Marth looks like he What the fuck is up with Marth's lips? What is wrong with his
I know
lips?
what you're talking about. I might be one of the very few people that actually doesn't mind the whole DS era art style at all. But yeah, I know what you're talking about with the Marth one at least. And I think I was really disappointed with Marth's actual like sprite and his animations in the game because it was so boring, and the fact that he never gets an upgrade or anything. Ugh, hated looking at that one. But I do remember when we first got like the original trailers announcing Shadow Dragon, when I saw like the Armor Knight walk across the field and attack, I was like, oh my god. The fact that they used I'm assuming they used like 3D modeling to make the sprites and then basically just converted it into a sprite, and that's why things look kind of fluid, but then it's also like very rough edges on a lot of stuff. It had its downsides, I think, but
oh yeah,
I don't know, for some reason I kind of liked it. It felt like a step forward to me, and the animations weren't as like campy and amazing as the Game Boy Advance era, which I do kind of wish they kept up. But I don't know, it didn't bother me as bad as I guess other people.
I mean, I found it like the battle animations. Sometimes it was it was a little too like blurry, or it was very blurry, and it was I was used to
yeah.
I was used to it looking very clean and sharp because I was going from Awakening. I went from Awakening to the Tellius duology to the DS duology because you have Shadow Dragon and New Mystery. And I could handle it, like, when I played Shadow Dragon, I was okay with it. Or I could handle it. But Shadow Dragon, like, it wasn't really the portraits. It was more the battle animations for me. I didn't mind the portraits that much, but the battle animations, they, for me, sometimes were hard to sit through. But once I got to New Mystery, they didn't even change anything. It's the same engine, but for some reason, New Mystery stuck with me a lot better.
Right. I was disappointed that we didn't get customized colors on people. That really made me mad because like all of your paladins were orange. I think that was the worst thing to me, was just the lack of variety.
Oh yeah.
Like any little variety that they had in the GBA era or anything else, at least just like, oh, this is the Cavalier with green hair. At the very least, just that. And it just not having that, I think, really lost something for me.
Yeah, I can totally see that. A lot of individuality was lost in the units.
I will say I like Marth's portrait art a lot better in New Mystery than I do in Shadow Dragon. The pictures that...
Yeah, oh yeah. Shadow Dragon, the New Mystery. Oh man. Yeah, I can see... I I could totally see that. Like personally, I prefer New Mystery almost in every single way over Shadow Dragon in terms of just the game overall, including the some of the portraits looked a lot better in New Mystery. I had a good time with New Mystery.
I think a lot of the like regular artwork, like a lot of the regular artwork that the artist did for Shadow Dragon, like the what is it, the like just like their typical designs worked, but when it came time to translate it into when it came time the first time around when it was time to translate it into a DS sprite, it very clearly did not translate well. Like the concept art did not translate well at all.
There's some cool art like there's some cool like little CGs from Shadow Dragon and New Mystery. I think there's also a few CGs scattered throughout Awakening actually. Actually, Fire Emblem actually has a lot more CGs than I immediately think of, because you have that like CG gallery in FE7 and 8, I believe. Because instead of cutscenes, it was the CGs that were the big deal. Like today we talk about in Awakening, cutscenes were a big deal. But back like FE7, FE8, like the CGs weren't the equivalent of a cutscene, but that was like almost like how cutscenes are nowadays, or sometimes treated as like a prize, or it's like a special treat. I guess like CGs, like they kind of replaced the roles that CGs had, so we get a lot less of them than we usually do now because of cutscenes.
Yeah, because like in I think like one of the most iconic ones is in Fire Emblem 6 when what is it? What is his name? Why am I forgetting his name right now? God, what is his name? What is the name of the main villain of Fire Emblem 6? Please remind me.
That is a good question.
Am I losing a brain cell too?
I can't remember his name.
You're talking about Zelgius?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
When
I didn't know if you meant somebody else.
When Zelgius spins at Celica, and you see just how badass the man is, and you see him destroy this teacher. That is a very important moment. Like that is one of the, I think that's like the most iconic CG in all of Fire Emblem, because like everyone talks about that.
In terms of like cutscenes, I believe it was Studio Anima did Fire Emblem Awakening. Then it was Studio Kara, I believe. I believe that's the studio. I did a video
for
on
Echoes.
This. Yeah, they did Echoes.
Yep. Echoes. It was Kara.
Kara.
Yep.
Now, I'm not sure how much anime you guys watch, but what studio would you want to see on the Switch cutscenes?
Like for 3D or like or 2D as well being involved?
Like as in I'm mainly thinking like, I don't know. Yeah, Studio Anima, Studio Kara. What studio do you want to see just on those pre-rendered cutscenes?
So, I'm about to commit the ultimate sin. Do you guys watch JoJo?
Yeah. I watched JoJo.
So,
I'll admit it. I watched JoJo.
So, first 3 seasons of JoJo, those 3D cutscenes were absolutely gorgeous, and they did the Batman in Japan film as well. I can't remember the name of that studio.
Man, it's right off my tongue.
I can't remember it. If it pops up, just
wasn't it,
point it out and I'll edit it in.
Wasn't it David Productions? Was the production?
No, that's the studio that does the anime itself.
Yeah.
So let me look for it.
While you look for it, I'll go over my pick, because I want Ufotable on something Fire Emblem related so bad. This is gonna be me kind of just weebing out on you guys, but I love Ufotable, and they did like Fate, all the Fate Zero, Fate Zero, Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, Fate Stay Night, Heaven's Field. They do awesome just visual effects, and I think of Fire Emblem magic and battles done by Ufotable, and I just like, I don't know, it's very unlikely, but like if I had one studio I'd want on some Fire Emblem cutscenes, it'd definitely be Ufotable.
I've actually never seen any of the Fate stuff yet, but it sounds like they're good if you like them that much.
Start with Zero, it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Netflix if you want to check it out, dude. It's pretty crazy. But I'd love to see they have some of the best fights I've ever seen, or the most visually.
There was literally a scene where there's like a dog fight between an ancient throne that is also a jet and a modern jet. It's one of the dopest things I've ever seen.
You have like this ancient throne flying around in the sky fighting like a modern fighter jet. They go crazy. They go nuts. They also have some good 3D effects. Because Studio Kara, I believe, were those 3D cutscenes, or like were those 3D like Echoes? Echoes felt the cutscenes felt a little off. I don't know.
Yeah, so they did it in 3D, and they had the ability to. I'm not sure if they had the ability to, or if they just didn't know how. But essentially, what they did was they perfectly made it feel. They purposely slowed down the frame rate and made things move a little bit slower and made things a bit choppier overall to imitate 2D cutscenes, which is weird because if you want to imitate 2D using 3D, why not just do 2D?
I believe 3D is cheaper.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. That's just me talking out of my ass. I have no clue.
I found the name of the studio. They are Kamikaze Doga, and they do the JoJo openings, which are very flamboyant, very stylish, and I think.
Oh yeah.
I am not very. I have not seen the Batman movie they did yet, so I have no idea how good their range when it comes to showing emotions or having quiet moments is. But I think just to dream, you know, like unrealistic expectations and everything, just to dream, I think Kamikaze Doga would be a fun choice.
Now, I don't know how into the animes you are, Stevie, but if you have a studio in mind, if you can think of one, what would it be?
Anime is a tough one for me because I enjoy it, like I appreciate it, but I guess I'm sort of the person that kind of there's just so many new shows coming out all the time. I don't have time to be watching all of them, especially when people are like every week, you know, like what was it, 2 weeks ago it was like Devilman Crybaby or whatever on Netflix. I don't have the time to go watch that, so I'll just like wait, I guess, for other people to kind of sift for the gold. And when I hear that something is like really amazing and enough people yell at me to go watch it, that's probably when I'll turn around and go watch it.
Yeah, the best way to watch anime is to not watch everything that comes out and sift through the garbage. Just wait and hear what is actually good and just go, all right, I'll watch those.
That's kind of been my strategy, but I'm also like incredibly biased and I guess jaded at this point because once I saw Death Note, like, I don't know, I'm not going to say it's like a 10 out of 10 amazing, like greatest show I've ever seen, but once I saw that anime, like other things just couldn't stand up to it in my mind. I just felt like nothing was ever as good as that again for me. So, I mean, I appreciated things that are still ongoing. Like I enjoyed Naruto for a long time. I don't really understand why they decided to keep milking it and go Boruto now and just keep. I don't know.
Because money.
That seems weird to me. I know it does print money, but I'm just like, I felt like it needed the break, that it was finally coming to an end. I was like, okay, breathe now. Too many fillers, breathe now. And there's no breath there. But yeah, I don't have a particular studio that I think.
It's time to breathe. Boruto. God damn it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll watch it eventually, but I tried many times to get through Shippuden. I was probably in the middle of Shippuden. I read all the manga, so like I know what happens, but with all the fillers and stuff, I just can't sit through it anymore. I just know that I'm wasting my life watching those stupid filler episodes, so I can't stand it. But there's no particular studio that I have in mind that I think would do like a really great job with Fire Emblem Switch. But I think if I had to pick one that we've already had in the other games, I would say I think either I really liked the cutscenes in Radiant Dawn a lot. Obviously, those are old at this point. I would hope that studio has like evolved since then. But when I go back and watch those, like I still really like those a lot, especially the way they made like Ike look and everything.
If those had better voice acting, I'd love them way more.
I didn't even mind the voices, but yeah, the matching the voice flaps is pretty bad in the Radiant Dawn ones. I don't like that. Yeah.
Oh, Soren, always lost in your books.
Yes.
Ike! Oh no!
What if I hit her?
Warm up, surround them all. Don't let a single one escape.
Be
Yeah,
quiet.
it's-
They'll find us.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, so I think
Or
I mean
why-
I liked the fidelity of those, but I also think that between like looking at Awakening and then looking at Echoes, I do like Awakenings a lot better. Even just going back to those at this point, looking at those, those are so beautiful the way they did those cutscenes. Yeah.
Have you seen the Blu-ray versions of those?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Holy crap! The HD Blu-ray like versions of those cutscenes are crazy. I love them so much.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. I feel maybe like with Echoes, they knew they had to do more because Awakening didn't have that many cutscenes at the end of the day. So maybe with Awakening or maybe with Echoes, they had to kind of skimp a little bit more with the, I guess, quality overall. I'm not sure, but yeah, it is definitely choppy. I will agree with you on that. That's probably my biggest complaint about it so far. But I mean, it's not ugly. It's not bad to look at, but I do wish that it was smoother. And Awakening had that smoothness and the detail. And yeah, I just like that a lot.
Yeah, like you were saying, like Awakening, almost all the cutscenes were within like the first few chapters. Like there was a span of time, like they throw a bunch of cutscenes at you, then there's like no cutscenes, and then it gets to the end of the game and there's a bunch more cutscenes.
Yeah.
But in Echoes, they're a lot more spread out, or there's a lot more of them, I think, even. Or I don't know if there's more. I'd have to look into how many there are.
I think it feels that way.
There's like about the same number as any Fire Emblem game. They're just because Echoes is a lot smaller and more focused. You get to see more of them. Like Fates, like there's like I think there's like a relatively like the runtime for cutscenes in the 3DS games like about the same. There's just it's the length of each individual cutscene and how they're put throughout the games that kind of affects that. Like Fates, they're limited to character introductions and like in Revelations they're like parts of and then they're limited to character introductions and the end of the game essentially.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, but there's one last thing I want to kind of talk to specifically Stevie about. And I asked you earlier at the beginning, like what you're most proud about, like your content. But this is the question that's a little bit different. It's what do you love most about making videos? Like what is your favorite part? Like what do you love most about like making videos? Like because I don't know, it's just got me curious because sometimes I think about like what I like doing, and I'm always curious to know what other people love about like making videos. Like what's your favorite part?
Gotcha. Yeah. Definitely not scripting because I mean scripting can be fun, but I really hate the fact that I mean if you want to make sort of the more educational videos, you have to research everything. I mean even things that you know like the back of your hand. You know, like how I know in chapter 10 of Awakening where basically at the end of the chapter, Chrom is going to marry whoever he has the highest bond with. Otherwise, it's the village maiden. Like, I know that, right? Like, you know that off the top of your head. But when it comes to making videos, you have to be so extra careful about every little detail. Sometimes you'll remember things a little bit wrong. And, like, knowing that I need to double check everything, that's what kills me about the script writing. So, definitely not that. Audio is fine, but sometimes when you're trying to get a certain tone or say things with a certain rhythm and you can't seem to do that, that can be a downer. Or, you know, sometimes you're like an hour into recording and your voice is all messed up because, you know, you're like projecting your voice and destroying your vocal cords probably. But yeah, I think what does it for me the most is probably seeing the reaction from people once I put up the video. Because it's crazy to think that so many people will tune in to check out some little thing. Like when you think about it from like a really meta perspective, something that I just sat here for, potentially hours on, just threw together some clips and stuff, like my own crazy little concoction, I guess you could say, to think that a lot of people will tune in and watch that and get enjoyment out of it. Maybe even, every now and again, you'll get that amazing comment of someone who's like, yeah, like that made my day. Like this video made my day better. Like, thank you. Like that, I think, is the really cool part for me. But I really like making thumbnails. And I think that goes back to, me being an artist and going to school for art, because that's sort of like, I guess, a way to flex my muscles in terms of, it's a challenge. It's a design challenge of making it relevant to the video, making it stand out, making people want to click on it without going like super clickbait, And it doesn't always work out. And there's definitely a lot of times where I'll make like, I don't even know, like maybe even 2 or 3 thumbnails for a video that it's hard to choose between. Or, sometimes you get stuck looking at it from one perspective and then you realize later on like, oh man, I could have done like a much better thumbnail for that video and I wonder if it would have done better. But yeah, I'd say overall, I guess it's just the reaction of actually putting out the video, being done with it, because you get that good feeling of like, yes, this is complete after, probably pulling an all-nighter or spending way too much time editing it. So yeah, that's my favorite part.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you on that. See, I'm like you in that I don't particularly enjoy script writing. I don't even particularly enjoy editing that much. I just like, I don't know, I like writing, I like having my thoughts down or putting out something I created into the world and just knowing that somebody out there is like, resonates with it or that it made their day. Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you on that one. Like that's probably the best feeling that you get from making YouTube content, or that I've gotten so far. And thumbnails, Fire Emblem YouTubers need to step up their thumbnail game, including myself. Your thumbnails literally put everybody else's to shame, in my opinion. It's been getting better recently.
I don't know. I mean,
it's been getting better recently, but yeah, your thumbnails are, of course, like you said, you went to school for art, so you got a leg up on everybody.
A lot of people do have some really good ones though. There's been a lot of times where I'm like, oh man, I wish I did a thumbnail like that, And that's the other thing too, is you have to constantly like reinvent the way you do things to attract, maybe a different audience, different group of people, or, people are not going to keep clicking on the same thing forever. Yeah. Right. So it's like, there's a challenge to that too, that I think is kind of fun. Yeah. So
I think we've covered a lot of ground today. And I think that's going to have to actually wrap it up for today. I'd really like to thank you, Stevie, Lucky Crit. As all, he's definitely, I'm going to put his link down in the description. Amazing guy. Definitely did not have to agree to do this, but he did. And hopefully you guys enjoyed having him here on the podcast. And hopefully, maybe if you go check him out, you'll see more of him in the future.
Thank you for having me. And
of course, I think we're just gonna wrap it up. Of course, Fish, you have any final thoughts?
I'm gonna be making a video essay that's gonna be on my channel. I have no idea when it comes out. Might not even come out by the time we make the second one, man. I don't know.
Well, this has definitely been an experience. First episode, first time doing this kind of thing. So thank you for all at home for bearing with us, having a good time with us, maybe putting this on in the background while you're doing something else. It's always a pleasure, like I was saying earlier, to know that people out there. Hopefully we made someone's day out there. I think that is going to wrap it up today for the Fire Emblem Pavise Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to have a good one, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.